James Garner, a name that audiences are surely familiar with. He was the star of Maverick, of the Rockford Files, a calm, elegant man, and seemingly never entangled in scandals. But behind that serene smile, behind the image of a faithful husband for nearly 60 years beside Lois Clark, lies a completely different truth. Handwritten letters, hidden notes, and whispers in the darkness have painted a haunting picture. People believe that. James Garner was once involved in secret romances with many of Hollywood's most famous male stars during the golden era. Those names you surely have known, have loved, but never imagined they would be linked to Garner in a forbidden love story. From Rock Hudson, the star who always lived in the shadow of the FBI, to Marlon Brando, the teacher, the lover, and also the solid wall that helped Garner stand against Hollywood's moguls. From Cary Grant, with love letters hidden in coat pockets, to Montgomery Clift, a broken soul that Garner tried to save. Each romance was a tragedy, a pain, and also a part of James Garner's soul that he never made public. The biggest question raised here is, did Lois Clark, the loyal wife who stood by him for nearly 60 years, really know nothing? Or was she the protective wall, the silent witness to the secrets that Garner took to his grave? And right now, I invite you to join me in the first chapter, where James Garner and Rock Hudson met, to begin a romance that was both beautiful and dangerous, like a flame burning in the night. At that time, Hollywood was submerged in a wave of witch hunts, where just a rumor about homosexuality was enough to destroy a career, even an entire life. Rock Hudson, with the perfect appearance of a romantic leading man, lived each day in fear. He was monitored by the FBI. His phone was tapped, and every step could be followed. It was in that suffocating period that James Garner appeared, after a film promotion event, amid the blinding flashbulbs. Garner's eyes met Hudson's deep blue ones, a glance, both desperate and yearning for salvation. At first, Garner was just a sympathetic friend, listening and sharing, but then, that closeness quickly turned into a deep emotional bond. On Saturday nights, when Los Angeles was still intoxicated with smoke and music, Garner quietly drove up the Hollywood hills to meet Hudson. To avoid detection, he even hired someone to impersonate him, creating a perfect cover for those rendezvous in the dark, in the silent villa. Hudson confessed his fear of betrayal, the pain of hiding his true self. Garner listened, held him tight as if to protect him from the whole world. Those long nights, they lay together until dawn, sharing things that neither had ever dared to say to anyone. Once, Hudson tremblingly said to Garner, "James, if we are truly together, we will die, not from bullets, but because the whole world will kill us with their judgment." A statement, both a warning and a death sentence. That love was both beautiful, fragile, and full of tragedy, because just one leaked photo would be enough to make them lose everything. So, Garner returned to his invincible masculine image on screen, and Hudson continued as Hollywood's romantic prince, flashing a radiant smile. But his heart still bled, people say. Even though they couldn't go public, the two kept in touch until Rock Hudson died of AIDS. And for Garner, it was not just a lost love, but a wound that never healed. Do you see it, dear listeners? Behind the brilliant film reels, behind the smiles on screen, were long nights full of tears and fear. And that is just the beginning, because after this dangerous romance, James Garner would step into another story, with a great teacher, an immortal icon of Hollywood. That person is Marlon Brando, a young man from Oklahoma, shy and bewildered when he set foot in New York. And before him was an already renowned star, entering the room with a proud gaze, a radiant charisma. That was the first time James Garner met Marlon Brando. At a small acting class, Brando didn't teach with theory. He approached, grabbed Garner's collar and growled, "Don't act. Live truly. You're too weak." That shock didn't make Garner fall. On the contrary, he realized that before him was an extraordinary teacher. From that moment, Brando was not just a senior, but gradually became a source of inspiration, then a bond that transcended teacher and student. As Garner rose to fame, that relationship quietly transformed. By the 1970s, when Garner was exhausted from the grueling schedule of the Rockford files, he decided to sue Universal Studios, a risky decision that could bury his career. But in the shadows, an invisible hand always supported him. That was Brando. The letters Brando sent to Garner were not just encouragement, but like sharp knives cutting through fear. "You don't need them. We've never needed them to live truly." Garner read and reread those lines like a Bible. Before each court session, there were nights. After tense shooting hours, Garner sought out Brando's villa. He collapsed like a child, and Brando, the man who once terrified the world on screen, held Garner tight, whispering, "Don't worry, I'll bear some of it for you. You're not alone." The next morning, before the media, people saw a completely different James Garner. Strong, tough, daring to confront a giant corporation, but few knew. Behind that determination was a Marlon Brando in the shadows, who never appeared publicly with Garner, but only left handwritten letters, whispers in the night. Dear listeners, history only records the victorious trials, the immortal roles. But no one knows about those dark nights when the two men sat beside each other, as if the whole world was against them. Perhaps James Garner's true strength came not just from talent, but also from this secret love, a love that was guidance, support, and a silent flame that helped him survive in a cruel Hollywood. And then, after Brando, Garner's life continued to write another chapter, a chapter full of romance but also hidden tragedy. With a perfect icon of Hollywood, that man is Cary Grant. Imagine the scene in Beverly Hills at the end of the 1950s. Lavish parties, twinkling lights, radiant stars. In that setting, James Garner, the young star of Maverick, suddenly collided with Cary Grant, the man the whole world admired for his flawless elegance. But behind the calm smile, behind the luxurious tuxedos, were furtive exchanges. They couldn't go public. So short love letters became the connecting thread. Garner secretly slipped folded notes into Grant's pockets, and Grant hid them under his coat, as if it were just a man's joke. No one knew that inside were trembling lines, jealousy, desire, and fear of exposure. Some nights, they tore up the letters, threw them into the fireplace, letting the ashes drift away. Sometimes, they lit cigarettes with the shredded love notes as a slow way to destroy their own love. In 1958, Confidential magazine suddenly hinted that Cary Grant might be homosexual. That rumor was like a knife slashing the fresh air, and James Garner suddenly disappeared from Hollywood for nearly half a year. People thought he was tired, or it was just a publicity stunt. But the truth, it was a desperate act to protect the love, to protect a man he couldn't hold hands with in broad daylight. Many years later, when asked about Cary Grant, Garner only replied briefly, he never let Hollywood define who he was. Those words back then sounded like a casual compliment, but when Garner passed away, people understood. It was the code for a hidden love, because in an old wooden drawer at Cary Grant's private home in Beverly Hills, People found a letter that was never sent. The trembling handwriting read, "James, the only thing I regret is not being able to hold your hand in daylight before thousands of eyes. You gave me a second youth. If there's an afterlife, I'll choose you." Without hiding. When that letter reached Garner, he burst into tears like a child. The man who was calm all his life collapsed before a piece of paper. The love between Garner and Cary Grant had no declarations, no wedding rings, no shared photos, but it existed in the ashes of shredded paper, in unsent lines, and in tears behind closed doors. However, Hollywood never allowed such a love to last. And then, after Cary Grant, Garner stepped into another story, a story no longer of romantic letters, but a journey to save a decaying soul. That character is Montgomery Clift, once praised as the most beautiful face on screen, but after the horrific car accident in 1956, his face was disfigured. His career gradually collapsed. From a bright star, Clift became a wandering shadow, sunk in alcohol and sleeping pills. Friends turned away, the public whispered, and he lived like a condemned man awaiting execution, while everyone turned their backs. James Garner stepped closer. At a lavish party, Clift stood silently alone, his eyes empty. Garner approached, placed a glass of wine on the table and whispered, "You're not a wreck. You're just a prisoner." It wasn't flirtation, but a lifeline. From that day, Clift's small apartment in New York became a refuge for both. Long nights, Clift sat in silence, whispering, "I'm rotting, James. No one can save me." Garner didn't argue. He just held Clift's hand tight, whispering in a warm voice, "You're not rotting. Hollywood may turn its back, but I won't." In Garner's arms, Clift believed for the first time that he still had value, that love wasn't noisy, no stage lights, just darkness, just tears, and tight embraces to remind that even a shattered soul deserved love. But fate was too cruel. In 1966, Montgomery Clift died in his New York apartment. The press called it the slowest death Hollywood ever witnessed. Among his belongings, people found a box full of paper scraps, letters never sent, all written to James Garner. One trembling line made Garner burst into tears. "You are the only reason I want to live one more day." The man who was strong all his life collapsed, holding those papers to his chest like the last treasure. Friends said, for many years, Garner always kept a small piece of Clift's paper in his wallet, as a way for Clift's soul to never leave him. Do you see it, dear listeners? This love didn't save Clift from death, but it saved his soul from oblivion. And for Garner, it was a deep wound, an obsession that followed him to the end. After Montgomery Clift, with a love full of tears and sorrow, James Garner stepped into another story, but this time, no longer words of salvation, nor love letters. This was a furtive, tense relationship, happening right behind the stage curtains. That character is Cliff Robertson. In the 1960s, Garner and Robertson worked together on a film project. In public, they were just friendly colleagues, but behind the scenes, hid a secret that made the whole crew whisper. Robertson often disappeared during breaks, and soon after, people saw Garner follow, quietly heading to the makeup room. At first, everyone thought they were discussing the script, but then, a female costume assistant accidentally opened the door and witnessed a scene that stunned her. Garner and Robertson sat close on the sofa. Robertson placed his hand on Garner's thigh. They startled, but instead of pulling away immediately, both just smiled awkwardly, claiming they were rehearsing an intimate scene. The rumor spread like wildfire. The whole film crew started looking at them differently. Some whispered sarcastically, "Don't leave those two in a room, or something might happen." No one dared say it outright. But Garner and Robertson knew they were being watched. And so, the secret meetings became a dangerous ritual. Robertson pretended to be tired, left the set first. A few minutes later, Garner followed. The makeup room door closed. Inside, only pounding hearts. They hurriedly held each other tight, exchanged trembling kisses in the fear that someone could open the door at any moment. Once, a sudden knock sounded. Robertson immediately pretended to check his hair in the mirror. Garner crossed his arms with a faint smile, pretending to chat about the scene. When the person left, they looked at each other, hearts still racing. Garner just held Robertson's hand tight as if to say, "We're still safe." But, dear listeners, think about it. A love that must live in fear every minute. Can it last? That suffocation exhausted Garner. He was tired of playing two roles, a perfect star in public and a fugitive behind the curtains. The relationship with Cliff Robertson eventually ended, not noisily, not a dramatic breakup, but quietly faded like a lamp running out of oil. But it left Garner with another scar, a memory both sweet and painful. However, Garner's emotional journey didn't stop. After Robertson, he found empathy in another person, a man in Hollywood's shadows. That character is Roddy McDowall. The name audiences remember most from the Planet of the Apes series. But in artistic circles, he was famous for another role, an elegant, discreet man, and especially a librarian of secrets. McDowall had a network of friends, all famous male stars, many of them gay. And he knew how to keep absolute silence. Garner met McDowall at an artist's party in Beverly Hills. At that time, McDowall carried his familiar Rolleiflex camera, capturing moments of friends. A casual photo captured Garner turning away with a half smile. That moment haunted Roddy McDowall. After that day, private meetings began. McDowall invited Garner to his home under the pretext of viewing the photo collection, but behind closed doors, in a room full of photos, audio tapes, and Hollywood memorabilia. They sat together, drank wine, talked, and then the flame of affection ignited. What Garner found in Roddy was not just attraction, but understanding. Because McDowall also lived in the shadows, also knew the fear of being exposed to the public. In the quiet room, Garner could be himself. Not the strong star, not the model husband, but just a person with simple desires. In the industry, rumors about them never vanished. Some whispered, "If you want to find Garner on Friday nights, don't go to the set. Go to Roddy's house." But McDowall was a master of concealment. No public photos, no times caught, only silent mementos, a few private pictures, a few audio tapes of Garner reading poetry, and short notes hidden under scripts. All became silent evidence of a deep but nameless love. With Roddy McDowall, James Garner found what he had longed for, a love without stage lights, without covering up with antics for the press, but just empathy and quiet, a refuge for Garner to escape the masks Hollywood forced him to wear. However, in the shadows of that love, there still lingers a haunting question. So what role did Lois Clark, the legal wife, the woman who lived beside Garner for nearly 60 years, really play in this picture? In 1956, at a small party in Los Angeles, James Garner met Lois Clark. Just 17 days later, they married. For Hollywood, it was a crazy decision, a rising star, marrying a woman outside the entertainment industry, who already had a child from a previous marriage. Friends laughed, studios shook their heads. Some even bet the marriage would collapse before Garner became famous. But they were wrong. For nearly 60 years, Lois Clark appeared very little in the media. No noise, no interviews, no glamour. She chose to stand in the shadows. But from those shadows, Lois became the heart of the Garner family. She raised Kim, her child from the previous marriage, and gave Garner a daughter, Gigi. Both avoided Hollywood, living quietly, peacefully. But Lois was not just a gentle wife. When Garner sued Universal Studios in 1975, she quietly became his right hand. Documents show Lois was present at most private meetings, taking notes, analyzing contracts like a real lawyer. The business knowledge she accumulated from community college became a secret weapon that helped Garner win the case. The big question raised here is, was Lois Clark simply a devoted wife? Or also a screen, an arranged ally to protect Garner? In leaked notes from 2015, there's a line believed to be from Lois. "He didn't hide from me. He just didn't want to be turned into a headline." That line, like a gentle confession, she knew, she understood, and she chose silence. A silence lasting nearly 60 years, like a vow never to break. To the public, Lois was the gentle wife by Garner's side until his last moments. But to closer observers, she was like a silent warrior, protecting her husband's perfect image, while safeguarding the secrets Garner couldn't utter. And that is the paradox. A marriage that was both the enduring romantic story and possibly a silent contract, helping James Garner survive in Hollywood's cruel world. Dear listeners, after all, we must ask ourselves, did James Garner truly live a happy life? Or just a staged one to avoid harsh gazes? If Lois Clark was the silent wall protecting James Garner, then he himself also became a master at controlling his image and keeping his private life unscathed. In March 1960, the tabloid Confidential suddenly released an anonymous article with a shocking title: "The Western Man with a Private Life Stranger Than Anyone's." No names, but every detail pointed to James Garner, the rising star of Maverick. For Hollywood at that time, such a hint was no different from a career death sentence. But Garner did the unexpected. He filed a lawsuit, threatening Confidential would face court if they dared hint again. As a result, the magazine that had spread fear for years was forced to retract the article, erase all traces, and go silent. From then on, James Garner established an iron rule with the media. He only gave interviews to mainstream outlets like TV Guide or Time. He absolutely avoided personal questions. And when rumors appeared, he maintained complete silence. This strategy made the public see a perfect Garner, masculine, upright, no scandals. But backstage, the whispers never stopped. Backstage staff said Garner often refused parties, avoided reporters, and only appeared in private meetings with a small group of male stars like Rock Hudson or Anthony Perkins. What set Garner apart was he never let himself be forced to come out, while Rock Hudson was pressured to marry to maintain his image. Tab Hunter was threatened by managers. Anthony Perkins lived his life in fear. James Garner stood firm. He wasn't exposed, wasn't forced, not once fell into scandal. However, that absolute silence left a strange void. After Garner passed away in 2014, fans, pop culture scholars, and even the press began to ask, was that too perfect silence evidence of a massive secret? A leaked diary entry from 2015, believed to be Garner's, read, "There are people I cannot name, but memories of them have never left me." Just that one line stirred up public opinion. People dug up old photos, analyzed every interview answer, searched for every faint sign, and the more they searched, the mystery around James Garner grew thicker. His wife, Lois Clark, refused all interviews. His daughter, Gigi Garner, only left a short line on her personal blog. "There are things my father chose to keep to himself. My family respects that." No denial, no confirmation, just a cold silence, but full of implications. Perhaps that is the final legacy James Garner left for the world. A legacy not just of films and immortal roles, but also an unsolved secret, a lingering question that makes people wonder forever. Was James Garner truly the perfect model? Or just a man who lived his life in shadows, with secrets buried deep to the grave, so that, behind every smile, every applause, hid wounds that never healed? The story of James Garner today has come to a close, but the secrets around him will probably echo forever in Hollywood's memory. A calm man, a shining star, a devoted husband, but also a person who lived his life in silence and nameless loves. And perhaps that silence itself is the loudest voice, making us ask, where is the truth? Where is the legend? If you feel this story touches your heart, please press subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other Hollywood secrets from the past. Leave a comment below. What do you think about James Garner? Is he a perfect icon or a man carrying unrevealed secrets? And if you find this video worthy, please share it so more people can listen. Thank you for joining, and see you in the next stories, where the light and shadows of Hollywood still have countless untold things.